So we are here with Padmasambhava, and what we're really trying to do in this ritual space is to invoke Padmasambhava into our presence, to actually invite him to affect our lives. This is really the reason for ritual. It's actually being initiated, being transformed through the ritual. So I'm just going to start with a prayer to Padmasambhava. Embodiment of all Buddhas of the past, the present and the future. Precious guide Padmasambhava, master of all magical powers, revealer of the great bliss, dispeller of all obstacles, wrathful subjugator of deluded beings. To you I pray, inspire me with your blessings. May outer, inner, and secret obstacles be dispelled from the depths of my heart, the core of my being. I pray to you. And through the grace of your blessings, may my longing for liberation be spontaneously fulfilled. It seems particularly pertinent to be invoking Padmasambhava at this time in the life of our society, in the wider world, in our personal lives. We're in a time of huge transition, and Padmasambhava is very much connected to this sense of the in-between realm, this in-between space. The traditional term is Bhadra, so we live in the Bhadra. In fact, we're always in the Bhadra, but right now, just because of the conditions that we find ourselves in, it seems more pertinent. The old has gone. The old world has dissolved, has been broken down by the pandemic. And those structures that seem so solid and eternal have been dissolved because of this pandemic. And the new, what we're moving towards, still remains completely uncertain. We don't know what the world is going to look like. We know that the world is in crisis. Climate change is so visible to us now. It's so obvious. And yet, our politicians seem frozen, unable to act. So we are definitely in this in-between place. So it seems completely appropriate that we need to call on something greater than, more than our own kind of ego constructs on an individual and a collective level. So we call on the support of Padmasambhava, call on the great transformer, the great magician, support, for guidance, for inspiration. So I'm just going to say a few words about Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava as a magician. So Robert Moore, who's talked about archetypes in various ways, he talks about this archetype of the magician having two very specific qualities that we can draw on or kind of lean into, if you like. So the first is that Padmasambhava is actually a master of the technology of ritual. He was really able to use these forces, which I'll say a bit more about in a moment. But the other thing he's seen to be is that he's a master of the journey of descent. This is said to be, he was able to really descend out of our ideas, out of concepts, out of judgments, that in some way hold us out of the world, hold us out of our own life. And the descent is the process of dropping out of these kind of structures and frameworks that we've built to protect us, to create meaning for ourselves, which, as we've just alluded to, for many of us are really breaking down at present. So we're encouraged to drop out of these ideas, this conceptual level of our experience, drop down into the heart body, this direct, intuitive, responsive way of knowing our life. And this descent into the body is the means to create a vessel, the vessel, in which we can establish this very direct, intuitive knowing. And this vessel, one of the aspects of it, is that knowing is ever renewing. So the Dharma, the truth that we're trying to engage with, is constantly manifesting in new forms, new ways of being. And if we have a fixed or we have concepts that kind of bind us, lock us in particular ways, then we can't really tune into that which is emerging. And one of the beautiful things about the body is that, as we know, the body has different limbs, different organs, and yet it creates a whole. And this simple image of the body, it really allows us to hold ambivalence, to hold contradiction, and allows much more fluidity of our knowing, that we don't have to fix into any one particular part of our body or part of our knowing. Because the body, I'm sure when we sit in meditation, the body's knowing moves different places, different experiences, different sensations the whole time. So it's a much kind of broader, responsive vessel in which we are working by descending out of that, the conceptualizing response to life. And what we are guided into through this trust or creation of the vessel of the body is a universe of revelation. That the world is constantly revealing itself, manifesting out of complete open dimension, open awareness, form is arising. And these forms have meaning, not just a single meaning, but multiple meanings. So the magician, Padmasambhava, has been initiated into seeing into the nature of this magical display, the world of appearances. And he's able to not split by being gripped, by being held by these illusions. So the example would be, if you go to a stage show and watch a magician, you can get completely drawn into the trick that's being displayed in front of you. You can really believe that the woman is being sawn in half, or the people's going to be put in a box and they're going to disappear. These things seem so completely real to us and we can't see through it. But as a magician, you recognize the nature of that display. You can see through the conjuring, which is really created by our constructed self that is seeking safety, seeking permanence, seeking ongoing meaning. And what we're doing is splitting ourselves off from each other, from the world, to create this safety, this separation that keeps us so that we've got some sort of control over this ever-changing universe which we are participating in. And that basic split that we have to do when we're younger to create a sense of ourselves, unfortunately we get kind of bound by that. That is the great illusion that we get bound into. And we split ourselves off and imagine that Nick is somehow different to me, that we are separate. But actually, these are appearances arising in a complete open field. So we split ourselves off into self and other, into self and world, and we split endlessly. And I think one of the most harmful things that we split is this sense of the spiritual and the mundane, the spiritual and the banal. We make some experiences special and we dismiss other experiences. So the magician really sees clearly how we maintain a fixed view by othering so much of our experience. We imagine and we create an inner and an outer world. But the magician, Padmasambhava, encourages us, teaches us how to soften that boundary, to quieten ourselves, to become sensitive to the body's heart knowing, and to receive from the world, so that we can see clearly the constructs we're ever building. We need to see these fabrications of our mind, but the magician sees them appearing, but doesn't act out of them, from them. And this seeing clearly without acting burns off their magical bind. This is the process of transformation. We see those ancient patterning, those ancient constructs arising, and we sit and rest with them in awareness, allowing them to burn off. And out of that burning off, our journey home back to our true nature can begin to open and flow. So I'm just going to say very briefly a little bit about the technology of ritual as used by Padmasana, and as we are using here today. So technology of ritual is the systematic use of objects, of symbols, of words and actions to bring meaning and insight into our shared and unique human existence. It develops the capacity to see into the invisible realm, to allow the world to speak through our eyes, through our seeing and knowing, can enter below the surface appearances of the world. So we come to something called double vision, which is really this is so significant and important for ritual. Yes, there's just these various objects sitting here on the shrine, being created brought together so beautifully. And there's something about just seeing them as they are, and yet they're all pointing towards something really important, pointing towards meaning, pointing to a greater sense of significance, which we don't need to be able to articulate. We simply open to that. Just allow the shrine, the world, to speak to us directly. So the ritual, it creates a container in which the unseen, the invisible can reveal itself, in which the unnoticed can burst into life and meaning. And often within ritual, the knowing or the significance, it comes through doing, through moving, through interacting, through engaging with the shrine, with the ritual space. So ritual is very much an active engagement. So we will be using this space in this way, using this technology to bring out, to draw on the blessings of Padmasambhava during the day.